Good evening, I'm Chris Murphy in the KRON 4 newsroom. A flood of phone calls coming in from a magnitude, preliminarily, of 5.6 earthquake centered in the South Bay. This earthquake from the U.S. Geological Survey shows, you can see the seismograph here, that this quake struck a little after 8:04 p.m., just about 10 minutes ago, and it is centered about 5 miles from Alum Rock, that's 7 miles from Milpitas, and just about 9 miles from San Jose's City Hall. Again, you can see here from the seismograph from the U.S. Geological Survey that this earthquake is pretty darn significant. A 5.6 earthquake. We haven't seen a quake that large in the Bay Area in quite some time. In fact, sitting in the newsroom, you could certainly feel it. The strongest I've felt in sitting in this newsroom in some 5 years. And I talked to Mike Poe up in the studio, and he said the lights were shaking on the third floor, the floor above us in the newsroom, said they were shaking quite a bit. And Mike Poe's been here some 30 years and was here, of course, for the Loma Prieta quake. But again, this quake, much smaller than that, at a 5.6 magnitude earthquake centered just outside, 5 miles outside of Alum Rock. We'll have more on this developing story of this 5.6 quake, preliminarily, coming up a little bit later from KRON 4. Right now, we return you to Dr. Phil.
What happened, I looked at myself like it was my fault.
Who has some more information for us? And Will, before we talk to you real quickly, the CHP reporting some good news that they are not seeing any damage to roadways in the Bay Area. So that's the good news from this 5.6 earthquake. What did you feel, sir?
Well, good evening, Chris. I live in Fremont, and I was lying in bed watching TV, and all of a sudden the house started to rattle. And at first you think hopefully just a few seconds or so, but it seemed like it lasted probably 10 to 15 seconds. And I heard you just got done talking to Mr. Walter, so it depends on where you live. I live in Fremont, which is a few miles from Alum Rock, and I felt every bit of the 5.6 magnitude. And my wife was downstairs, and she was just hysterical. She ran outside and got underneath the door, and all the other neighbors ran out and asked each other, "Did you feel that?" And everybody said absolutely, and definitely the stuff around the house was rattling, and I had to go around to make sure nothing fell off the shelves, and fortunately nothing did. I got some interesting tidbits, Chris. I talked to my brother-in-law. He was at a movie theater in Santa Clara. When it rattled, at first they thought it was just the effects of the movies, maybe the speakers are being very loud, but then once they realized it wasn't part of the movie, they all ran out. According to him, he said the first few rows ran out of the theater, and everybody else tried to calmly go out, but they were all let out, and they were all just mortified by what happened.
Yeah, the panic can often be more dangerous than the shaking itself. Pam Moore has a question for you as well, Will.
Hi, Will. Just checking here in the newsroom, we felt what felt like a very long rumble. What did it feel like there? Was it more of a jolt, or was it more of a rolling effect?
It felt more like a rattle. I mean, I've been through enough earthquakes where some are wavy. This one, it felt like somebody just grabbing you and rattling you back and forth. You can hear the house creak. I mean, the wood structure of the house, you can hear it for the first time in recent memory, according to me, as far as the earthquakes, and everything started rattling. It wasn't waving, wasn't undulating, it was a rattle.
Was it strong enough that there was any damage? Did anything fall, break, or move about?
I think it moved slightly, but nothing fell off the armoires or the bookshelves. Fortunately, I went around the house to make sure, and nothing slipped off where it fell to the ground and broke. But definitely, it moved a little bit. You know, your little pieces on your table. It moved a few inches maybe or so, but nothing fell off, fortunately. But it definitely, you felt every bit of the 5.6. I live in Fremont, which is, slightly north of Alum Rock, and you felt it, and my wife was hysterical. She ran outside and got underneath the door, and everybody else ran outside as well. And you can imagine the neighbors turning to each other. Did you feel that?
Tell me the reaction from your neighbors. Here in the newsroom, of course, we've been getting calls from such a wide area throughout the Bay Area, people way north, way south, and east calling about having felt this quake. What were your neighbors saying?
Produced earthquakes in the magnitude range of 5 to around 6. So in a sense, it's not anything unusual, but on the other hand, it's probably one of the larger earthquakes that has occurred in the Bay Area since Loma Prieta.
Yeah, I've been here 7 years, and that was the strongest jolt I've felt, especially in the Almaden Valley area. What about aftershocks right now? What can we expect there?
Right now, we are seeing that aftershocks are occurring. How long the aftershock sequence will last, we don't know at the moment. One thing that we have seen is that when we have a magnitude of a 5 or larger in the Bay Area, or actually in California for that matter, we issue a probability that this earthquake of this size is likely to be followed by something larger. So over the next 72 hours or so, there's an elevated chance that we could have something bigger along this part of the fault zone.
When you say something bigger, David, how much?
Well, you know, if this was on the Hayward Fault and we had a 5.6, I think we'd be very, very concerned. Our experience has been that this part of the Calaveras Fault typically produces earthquakes maybe in the 6.3 to 6.4 range, which can be damaging, but are not as damaging as the magnitude 6.9 or 7 that we might expect out of the Hayward Fault.
And you say this could be felt within the next, 24 hours?
The aftershock warning will last for the next 72 hours. You know, so we're basically, right now, it's very early in the history of this. All the data, you know, have not come in yet. We're watching, we're talking, and, you know, there'll be more comments down the road.
What are we seeing as far as an aftershock right now? You said you were measuring some aftershocks right now.
Yeah, there's some small aftershocks in the magnitude range of, you know, around magnitude 2, and that's sort of consistent with having an earthquake of around 5.5, 5.6.
All right, David, thank you for bringing us that information. And we're going to continue to follow this, obviously, and we also have someone else on the phone.
Well, if you're just joining us, we have special coverage right now. If you just heard, you probably felt it already, the 5.6 earthquake centered near Alum Rock. I was just out getting some dinner, and I felt the whole building shake. Some people even ran out of the building, ran to their cars. Big traffic jam getting out of the mall just to, you know, get out of there. The traffic lights were not working. Trying to call back here to the station. No cell phone signal. It's just, you know,
exactly.
And then coming here, also some traffic lights were out as well. So it's stop and go, stop and go.
Yeah.
Once again, a 5.6 earthquake centered in Alum Rock, not too far from here. You can see the information from USGS, the seismograph right there. This is pretty powerful for some people. I mean, even to run out of the building at that point.
You know, what I noticed, as I said a minute ago, is I was sitting on the living room sofa, and the loud boom, and then it sounded like a plane overhead that was flying right over top of the house. And then at that point, the house started shaking, and it was a continual shake, as most people have said, for 15 to 20 seconds.
Right, a lot of people felt it tonight. Once again, a 5.6 earthquake centered in Alum Rock in the South Bay. We'll have more continuous coverage here on NBC 11.